Which way they going? Okay. We're going to just come through
Right through here? Okay.
Is my purse in the way?
No. If y'all would just move over out of the sidewalk. Do we?
Mike, where's your truck?
Right here.
Siempre. Solo nunca va a estar y lo sabe. Lo queremos mucho. Con la cara de frente levantada siempre. ¿A usted?
Estamos hablando.
Sí, claro, me llama. Ya sabe que lo quiero y Choco. Chaparra, lo queremos mucho, mijo. Con la cara delante de frente. Ganamos porque querían que lo mandaran a matar y eso jamás. Claro que sí, me llama.
Yo le hablo.
Yo sí, lo queremos.
Sí, yo le hablo.
Now you guys can make a party.
Neighbors, dog killing our clients' wife's chickens, and I really want to go. And so things kind of went downhill from there. And then at night, it was just a lot going on stuff.
Mr. Oropeza sat there expressionless during two very tearful victim impact statements.
That's because that's what we advised him to do. So if you're asking him why he didn't show any emotion, it's because having done this for 42 years, that's what I ask my clients to do.
And has he ever expressed remorse?
I'm not going to answer that question, okay? You always show up and ask questions that are so out. I'm going to talk to the real news media, not the fake news.
Well, you're welcome to make that opinion whatever you think.
Okay,
It was,
thank you.
the judge asked him some questions about his immigration status. Is there any chance he actually gets it?
No, that really has no effect, okay? But the law requires the judge to tell him that. We've been over it with him. I mean, we also had to advise him that he, as a convicted felon, he can't possess a firearm ever again. And he understands that, and he's not going to be possessing one.
Those are standard legal admonishments that every criminal defendant gets when they enter a plea.
I suppose my only question is, there's no chance the U.S. government removes him from Texas State Prison and sends him back to Mexico?
Haven't seen it done in 42 years.
What effect did social media have in your case?
I'm sorry?
What effect did social media have in your case?
Where do you want me to start? I mean, the whole story, the whole narrative about him discharging his weapon in the backyard and the baby was sleeping and please, politely asking him not to shoot his gun. That whole, dialogue, it never really went down like that. That wasn't really how it took
Most
place.
of the chatter online was by people who had no personal knowledge, were not there, and just frankly made stuff up to put it on social media to cause a lot of uproar. But, no. Factually, no. I mean, none of that mattered. We certainly did our due diligence and investigated every lead and followed all those trails. So it did result in a lot of wasted hours on our part investigating all those potential things. But at the end of the day, none of those things were accurate.
Let me add one other thing in regard to your question, okay? Yes, we had a 9-year-old that was shot. He was remorseful, okay? He stepped up and he took responsibility and he signed up for life in prison. He knows he'll never get out. He will never live a life like the one he lived when he was in the free world, okay? And, I mean, I kind of feel like I don't have to address that, but yes, he was remorseful and he was willing to step up and accept responsibility, okay, for his actions.
Thank you.
Did he have anyone from his family here in the courtroom today?
He did. He did. And they've been very supportive and they were very behind us in our work, very complimentary, and also helped us in explaining to him his options. The Mexican government had an agency that assists, and they were very helpful. And so, you have to understand, I mean, for myself, I was born in New York. I'm not familiar with all the Mexican nuances and culture along with the rest of us, except for Anna. So, you know, we relied on any resource we could, trust me. There's a lot of different agencies that offered help. Mainly in just trying to get the case resolved, because the Mexican government is, as you know, they're not big fans of the death penalty, and so they were very much behind us moving forward with this plan.
I have a question for Ana in Spanish, if you don't mind. Ana, ¿qué significó para tu cliente aceptar este acuerdo y cómo se sienten ustedes?
Nos sentimos felices del resultado, felices de que se salvó su vida. Estamos de acuerdo con el resultado. Creo que todas las partes estamos de acuerdo con cómo se terminó este caso.
Y me imagino que tu cliente pudo entender de que pues no habrá una apelación, no tendrá la oportunidad de otra vez estar al aire, ¿no?
Claro, esa es una parte es parte del resultado.
El abogado explicaba de que como que se le aconsejó que no mostrara como ningún semblante en su rostro. ¿Nos podrías hablar un poco de eso?
Esa es parte de lo que siempre se le aconseja a los clientes, que no demuestren ningún tipo de emoción. Es más fácil para todas las partes si no se demuestra ningún tipo de emoción.
You understand?
Yes.
See you. Sure. My name is Todd Dillon, Criminal District Attorney of San Jacinto County. That is Todd, T-O-D-D, Dillon, D-I-L-L-O-N. And this is Rob Freyer, R-O-B-F-R-E-Y-E-R. Not Freyer, Freyer.
And explain real fast what happened here.
So what happened today is the culmination of all the events that started on the night of April 28, 2023. That night, San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office deputies responded to a complete tragedy. And no matter what we do here today, that's the emphasis, that this was a tragedy. Our victims range from children to adults. The scene, we were there, and it was absolutely unspeakable. What happened today was accountability for that night. And it was a time for this family to be able to finally move on, for this family to be able to sleep at night and say that this person will never be able to hurt another human being ever again. That's what happened. But in short, Francisco Oropeza was charged with death, capital. So we've given notice of seeking the death penalty. He pled to lifetime confinement within the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institutional Division. No parole, no appeals. It's done today.
Talk to us about the different factors that went into making this decision. So not only did you have the family, how long this was going to drag out, but you also had the financial component that was listed on the press release. Walk us through all of that.
Sure. Well, the first thing I want to emphasize with that was just, and you all saw in those victim impact statements, that family. This family is absolutely incredible. Every single one of those family members that did a victim impact statement, all were saying, we hope that you find God. We hope that you get that God forgives you for what you did, that you have mercy on this. The decision begins and ends with the family, right? The decision to offer life begins and ends with the family. So there are some other lesser considerations, practical considerations for the county, and we'll get into those in a second, but I want to emphasize it's what that family wants, what that family can do. If that family says this ends today, we don't have to worry for the next 20 years of whether this case is going to be reduced, if it's going to be on appeals, if we have to come back and try this case again, if we don't have to live with the uncertainty of what's going to happen. And that's probably, in my discussions with the family, probably the biggest thing for them is that there's certainty today. They don't have to guess. They don't have to wonder what's going to happen. They know he will be in prison until he dies. It is a death sentence of its own, just that he'll die in prison. However, kind of what you're going to, there's a reality of the situation, and it's a much lesser consideration, okay? But there is a practical consideration that this is a county of 28,000 people. This county has an annual budget for indigent defense of $280,000 for every felony case that happens. One of the things I have to do as the district attorney is I have to be a good steward of the resources that I have available at my disposal. Some of those resources are how many cases I can try. In this county, we have 12 opportunities every year, on a good year, to try a case every week. We have 12 weeks out of the entire year to try a case. I have to be a good steward so I can get as much justice to as many families as possible. So if the family and if the families, and I would emphasize that this is many families, the families in this case say, we want this over today, we don't want this to drag on, then that is a way that I can be a good steward for all those resources and try to get as much justice as possible to as many families who are affected by violence in San Jacinto County.
I ask this because unfortunately it's a position you may find yourself in the future. If a family says, no, we want a trial, what would you do in that situation, and what would the financial implications be for the county?
Well, and at the end of the day, we were going to, if there was not going to be a plea bargain, we were going to try this case, and we were going to find a way through it. It was just, if a family says absolutely not, and that request is reasonable, then yeah, we would have to do it. If in this situation, if Mr. Oropeza said, I'm not waiving a jury trial, I'm trying this, then we would have sought death. There was no doubt about it. And that would have impacted other families in this county, without a doubt. So this decision was just that the family was okay with it. If that does happen, I don't want to give the impression that this county will just say, well, if we have a death capital and we have to try it, we're not going to try it. That's absolutely not correct. If that has to be the case, yes, but it will impact other families who are victims of crime as well.
Impact and how and where? I would imagine you ran through the math, and so where would that money have come from, and do you need a larger budget for indigent defense?
Right. Well, indigent defense is always something that is helpful, maybe because people often ask me, like, well, why do you want the best attorneys to go up against? Because what we're doing here is serious. We want the best attorneys possible who are highly qualified, and unfortunately, those attorneys cost money. So what we're doing here is taking away people's liberty, one way or another, and that's a serious business. And there should be equally skilled, equally well-trained people on the other side. Yes, and there are some ways to increase indigent defense, and there's some abilities to do that. I think rural Texas has struggled with that historically. So yeah, I mean, increasing indigent defense funds for rural counties, that's absolutely a priority.
As part of his guilty plea, did he write or say what his motive was for doing this? Is there anything you can say about why this happened?
So, as far as how the plea works mechanically, every felony plea in Texas requires a stipulation of evidence, a signed judicial confession. That basically knocks out the elements of capital murder. And I'll tell you, the why is always difficult for prosecutors, it's always difficult for juries, and ultimately, and the worst part is, it's always difficult for families, because this process isn't always designed to find out why people do the things they do. It's to find that there's proof beyond reasonable doubt of what they did. But to answer your question more succinctly, I don't know if we'll ever really know why he did what he did. We were confident from the time we got him in custody that there was proof beyond reasonable doubt that he absolutely did this, and we were absolutely going to be able to meet the elements. But yeah, the why is always elusive in these cases. And unfortunately, this system is just not very well set up to answer that why. So, no, to answer your question succinctly.
Were drugs or alcohol involved?
There was some evidence to that regard, but I don't have toxicology results from Mr. Oropeza or anything like that, so there's nothing that I could say definitively. Of course, as you all remember, the offense set off a multi-day manhunt, so that wasn't something that was going to be available as far as evidence.
With the Trump administration increasing deportations for those accused of or convicted of crimes, is there any chance that he could be yanked out of this prison and deported?
Absolutely not. That is not an option. He will remain in the custody of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice until he expires. And that was a concern of the family, and it's something that I wanted to be clear. When we mean life without parole in Texas, we mean it. So there's no situation that I see where Mr. Oropeza walks out of TDCJ, unless it's an escape or it's in a body bag.
Who were the two people that spoke to the victim impact? What were their relationships?
One of the victim's sisters and one of the victim's mothers.
How many family members of the victims were here today?
About 15. We've gone back and forth and speak. I've spoken to all of them. None of them can speak English, so my ability to speak Spanish and communicate with all of them was very helpful for us.
Sure.
And I wanted to follow up on what Todd said in that we vetted this result with them very specifically, very detailed to ensure that they were on par with what we were doing. They had my cell number. I communicated with them weekly for the last 21 months about what was going on, so they were fully aware of what was going on down here. So none of what we did, none of what happened in court came as a surprise. We had hours-long meetings with them, all in Spanish, with them about making sure that they were fully aware as to the options, the potential risks and setbacks that come with going to trial. And like Todd said, this is a sure, final, certain result. And he will die in prison. He will never get out unless he's carried out.
And that certainty to the family was the driving force. I mean, like I said, there's practical factors, but they don't even compare to making sure that the family is as comforted as they possibly can and giving them that certainty. Yes, sir.
Where did the family come from? Are they all from the Texas area? Or
Honduras.
Yeah,
they came from
they're
Honduras?
yeah, several of them are Honduras nationals.
Did some of them fly in for this today? Or?
Most of the folks that were here lived in Baytown, Houston, Pasadena. Some of them lived out there in Trails End where this happened. They were local, and that added another consideration that Todd had mentioned about the expense and the resource issues with having a trial and getting people here for the defense, from Mexico, from Honduras and everything. Sure. In going forward. Those are factors that were in play here.
And can you guys, as people who live in this community, talk just about how this whole thing has affected Cleveland area, San Jacinto County?
Well, I mean, I can tell you, it's very, very strange. As somebody, I was born and raised in Shepherd. I've lived here most of my life when I wasn't in school or away for a job. And it's weird seeing something that happened in your town being on Wikipedia. It's weird seeing something that happened in your town being reported in a foreign language. It just doesn't compare, right? There's no idea. And the idea is that everybody wants to feel secure where they live. Everybody wants to feel that nothing can happen where they live. That's absolutely not true. I mean, violent crime happens everywhere. At the end of the day, we just want to make sure that every single one of those violent crimes results in accountability. And that's what we had to do.
Fiscal Freyer, si
Sí.
puede hablarnos en español, por favor, sobre lo que ha sucedido hoy aquí.
Mira, ese hombre Francisco Oropeza se declaró culpable para la ofensa de asesinato capital y recibió un acuerdo con nosotros de castigo de pena perpetua para toda la vida. Él nunca va a salir de la presa. En vez de proceder un castigo de muerte, el reo, el Oropeza, renunció todos los derechos que tenía de apelar, de continuar este caso, y por eso él lo va a pasar cada día, cada minuto, cada hora de él en la vida, en la presa, y nunca sale, nunca va a salir, nunca va a ser deportado. Él va a pasar tiempo allá y será olvidado.
¿Cómo llegaron a ese acuerdo con la defensa?
Y nosotros estamos platicando con ellos desde 2 o 3 meses. Tenemos muchos casos, otros juicios que están pasando aquí. Y nosotros, Todd y yo, en nuestra oficina tuvimos que hacer los steps, el proceso correcto para asegurar que la familia estaba satisfecha con ese resultado. Y para asegurar que si ella no tenía preguntas acerca de nosotros, acerca de lo que estamos pasando, y nosotros hablamos acerca de los riesgos, los problemas de tener juicio contestado, y ellos entendieron que están listos de terminar y cesar todo ese proceso, esa pesadilla, y les gustaría continuar con sus propias vidas.
Ahora, él quedó exento de la pena de